everybody. Thank you for joining me with my Women's Wellness webinar. I am joined today by my father, Pat Zemer, and we're going to tell you a great story today that totally has to do with women's wellness, health. We want to introduce our special guests. Today, we have Stephanie and Lainey. Say hi.
Hi. Hi, everyone.
So Stephanie is a MagnaWave owner. So Stephanie, I'm going to let you tell us a little bit about, what machine you got and how you started this process and met Lainey.
So actually, I met Lainey the day she was born because she's my sister, actually. So it's been a while. So I have been in this business actually because our dad was diagnosed with cancer back in 2010. And when he was diagnosed with cancer, he wasn't given any options. He was told chemo, radiation, and if he wanted to partake in surgery, he could do that. And it wasn't enough for us. So we started investigating and researching into what his options were, what different complementary or integrative therapies we could incorporate into his protocol. As we learned these things, it wasn't necessarily in time to save him. He did really well during his therapy. He felt good. He had a really good quality of life. He did things in his life that he hadn't experienced in his entire lifetime.
Wow.
It was the power of nutrition, the power of holistic therapies, the power of forgiveness. That was a big one.
Mm-hmm.
So there was a lot of emotional healing that happened for him. He didn't survive and he didn't overcome, but he had a lot of healing during that time. Okay. So even after we lost our dad, it's just this morphed into my career. I changed my career path and I became a cancer coach. I've been studying for my doctorate in holistic and natural science, and integrating these different types of therapies and making them available and more accessible for people has been my passion. So a couple years ago, I opened a holistic health center in my hometown. This was something that we craved. I searched day and night. I interviewed, I called, I left emails looking for a place that could support our dad. There was nowhere.
Right.
In our area, everything that I found, we would have to drive, fly, take a train. There was nothing local to support him. So I developed the Theta Living. It's a holistic health center, and we incorporate now MagnaWave. We use the MagnaWave Pro, and it's been fabulous. So for Lainey, when she was diagnosed a year and a half ago, the rarest form of breast cancer known to physicians at this point in time.
Wow.
There's not much information. It's shown to not respond to any type of conventional therapies. So when she went out of the country to get her treatment, everything had to be alternative. Mm-hmm. So coming home to continue that for her healing has been an absolute blessing, and MagnaWave's been a big part of her recovery since being out of the country, healing, and she went through a mastectomy. So in addition to keeping the cancer cells away, mm-hmm. she's also recovering from surgery, which has been a big bonus to use the MagnaWave.
Yeah. So you said she was diagnosed about a year and a half ago. Is that correct?
Yeah, it was February of 17. Yeah.
Okay, so what differences have you seen, like Lainey, you specifically, like have you felt or seen since you started using the machine? And then you also talked a little bit about diet. I like to talk a lot about that when I'm talking to people about our women's wellness, because what I found is it's incredibly important when you're going through anything, everything from stress to depression. Not only does this machine help, but making sure you're changing other things in your life. So maybe, Lainey, tell me a little bit about what you did and when you added the machine and how you felt.
Well, the machine, I get a lot of back pain, so I would use that, and that would help a lot with my pain that I had.
Okay, great. That's awesome.
How did they use the machine when you were out of the country as part of your therapy?
Well, it was up to us to use it. We would go, and they wanted us to use it for at least 15, 20 minutes a day. So we would just put it on different areas depending on where the cancer was. That's where we would put the different
Attachments.
attachments.
Yeah.
Okay.
Her favorite therapy, when we would stay in touch, her favorite therapy was always the PEMF because it made her feel the best.
Right. So so how long have you had your machine, Stephanie, and how often are you treating her now?
So we're going on maybe 2 weeks now. This is our second week.
Okay.
And she uses it every single day. I think you take Sundays off.
Yeah.
She takes Sundays off, but she uses it every day. Minimum 1 time a day. You want to tell them how you run your sessions?
Well, I do it 5 minutes on different areas. So I do it 3 to 4 times at 5-minute intervals.
And she alternates between the large loop and the butterfly because she does have the scar, the mastectomy scar, and she's also supporting her body as a whole. So we're working on the back from her, the back pain that she carried, in addition to helping post-surgically and supporting her cells. So we've always been very holistically, nutritionally conscious, but when she was diagnosed with cancer, and being at a clinic outside of the United States, she was in Mexico, they are very specific with their holistic nutrition.
Right.
So her protocol was specific to her blood work. So in using that and combining that with PEMF, she was able to amplify the uptake of her vitamins and her minerals. And she's got a little bit of a different story here because her cancer was so rare, absolutely everything they did had to be experimental. Unfortunately, that's what, fortunately/unfortunately. So she went through what they call IPT. So if nobody's familiar with that, it's called insulin potentiated therapy. She gets a dose of insulin so that it feeds the cancer cells. They become active. We got all of this metabolic activity. Then they give her a very small percentage of chemotherapy, which you got
25%.
So she had only 25% of a full dose of chemotherapy. So it would go straight to those unhealthy cancerous cells. So while she's getting this wholesome nutrition specific to her, she's utilizing the PEMF therapy to uptake all of those nutrients and to fend off the cancer cells. So it was very synergistic that she used this therapy to be able to better absorb and assimilate her nutrition. And it worked that much more effective for her. So we do the same thing here. She's still in a very specific nutritional protocol, and she combines the PEMF not only for pain, for her surgical site for better healing, but also to uptake the nutrition in her food.
Are you doing a vitamin C regimen at all at this point in time?
I take vitamin C. I take it orally.
Okay, so where did you go? So you said you were looking for a place locally in the United States, and then you ended up going overseas. Did you ended up going to Mexico? Did you go to Hope for Cancer, or where did you go?
I did. I went to Hope for Cancer in Tijuana, Mexico.
Okay, and so they have the Max machine.
They have Max machines and semi machines.
Okay, so they have the Max machine, the semi machine, but you're currently using the Pulse Pro, which is what Stephanie has there. And operation wise, is it easy to use? Or comparing the 3 machines, how was that process?
Oh, it's very, very easy to use. It's not a problem at all.
Okay, good. And then, so tell me a little bit, you said that the cancer was very rare, and this is just, does it have a name? For people out there who may have gotten a very similar diagnosis, like, what were you facing when they told you? Like, what did you have a stage that you were given? And, like, where are you now in your battle?
Well, it's a cystosarcoma phyllodes tumor.
Okay.
And when I had surgery, they did remove the whole thing. They got clear margins, so I no longer have the cancer.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Yes.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah. Here, when I went to the surgeon here, they just wanted me to do the full chemo. They wanted radiation, and they told me if it worked, they would consider surgery. So that didn't make me feel very hopeful or comfortable going that route.
Right. So you went the opposite route, and that's a scary decision to make. I mean, obviously, Stephanie, you have a very holistic viewpoint. This is definitely something that's close to your heart with your father. But I know a lot of people who, they have that decision, and they usually just kind of jump ship to exactly, Western medicine. Is there a way that you can do both? Is that what you feel like you did, Lainey, when you did that chemotherapy with the very targeted 25% chemotherapy? Was it kind of a mixture of both alternative and some Western medicine?
Yeah, I feel like it was integrative, so it did feel like I was doing both.
Well, I can point out that when I was at Stephanie's conference, and Stephanie, you can tell us a little bit about your conference in a minute, but Dr. Tony was from Hope for Cancer was talking about that they use the vitamin C, they use various chemicals and products that they create and they use for your nutrition and that type of situation. But he was also saying that in cases where it's warranted, he will address the chemotherapy aspect, which he did in your point in your case, but he tries to do it as minimally as possible to keep the incidence of illness and discomfort out of the picture and still be able to enhance what it's doing, utilizing some other therapies, which the PEMF, and then they're also using a laser, as I understand it, and some other devices in his practice there. So how was that something that when you made that decision to go, of course, the doctors here said chemo and then maybe surgery, so you were looking for the more direct output from the beginning, correct?
Yes.
Yeah, so I'm going to expand on that a little bit more.
Okay,
so
great.
Yeah, if we just in case someone's listening and I don't want to miss something that somebody might resonate with. So back in February of 2017, she discovered a lump. We sent her for a thermoscan, which showed it warranted a very high level metabolic activity in her thermography scan, which was indicative of a malignancy. She never at any point wanted a biopsy. She didn't want to be invasive, and she didn't want a mammogram. She went at that point, I sent her to Dr. Jimenez, who is a friend of mine, I sent her down there to Hope for Cancer, where she spent the next months, about 9 months, going through treatment. So keep in mind, we don't have a clinical diagnosis. She didn't have a mammogram, and there was no biopsy because she didn't want to be invasive. She didn't want that. She didn't want a chance breaching that contract with her tumor and causing spread. So this past winter, things started progressing more rapidly. It was getting pretty angry there, and she would go to bed at night and wake up in the morning, and it would be larger by the next morning.
Wow.
It grew significantly. She had a significant mass growing on her right breast. Well, then it eventually ulcerated and got to the point where something more had to be done. So we discussed it, and she had planned to go back to Hope for Cancer to take her next move. But I said, you know what? You have health insurance here in the United States. Visit a surgeon here, a breast surgeon, and see if we can utilize your health insurance that you pay for and get that taken care of here, and then go for follow-up therapy at Hope for Cancer. So she went and she talked to a breast surgeon here in Michigan, and they offered her palliative care chemotherapy, which means there's nothing we can do for you but make you comfortable with chemo. And if we shrink it enough, then we'll talk about surgery. But for right now, we're only going to talk about palliative care chemotherapy. So for anybody who might be listening, if you have been going through, she had nothing but hope and encouragement, and it was all feel good, holistic mind and body type of therapies up until this point. And then they jabbed her with that, all we can give you is chemotherapy. They just sucked everything out of her with those few words. Mm-hmm. So they just told her she wasn't a candidate for surgery. It was too aggressive. It had ulcerated. There's nothing they could do for her. She had no options here. So with that, she pulled herself back together, got on a plane, went down to Mexico, and they said, let's put a plan together. They also told her she was stage 4. You talked about, Elaine, you had asked about staging.
Yeah.
They told her she was advanced stage. They mentioned that due to a PET scan, it had spread to her axillary lymph nodes. It was in her sternum, pushing against her vertebrae, and they were concerned that it could potentially spread to her brain. So when she got to Mexico, it was inflammation. There was no spread throughout her body. It was completely localized to her breast and her breast only. So they put together a plan, and they did and you're right, Dr. Tony is not a chemotherapy kind of guy unless he has to use it to save somebody's life, in which he felt this was a particular case that he needed to do so. So they worked with a local surgeon, and they did IPT. And how many sessions did you do?
I had 10.
She had 10 sessions, and they monitored her every single week. They adjusted where they needed adjustments on her detox regimen, her nutritional protocols, her supplement intake, her supportive therapies. And throughout the course of that treatment plan, they monitored her. She's a very small person. So when you have this tumor that they have to cut off of you, you have to have enough skin to close it back up, and she didn't have enough at that point. So they very systematically waited for it to shrink enough till they could go in safely and remove it. It shrunk about 75%.
Yeah, about 60, 65.
Yeah. 65% it shrunk, and they were actually able to remove it. And when they did, it was 3 pounds after a 65% shrinkage.
Wow.
Yeah, if that gives you any idea of how big this was, how aggressive it was, and what she was dealing with. So these doctors, this team, they're a healing team. It's not a tumor board. They're not talking about only chemotherapy, one target, one treatment, one approach. She had an entire healing team that came together and supported her before, during, and now after. We're doing all supportive therapies here with her as well. And she'll make her visits out there too. But there, even when you're told that you have no options and all they can do is support your end of life, that's not the case at all. Her blood works better than mine. Her liver, it's kind of embarrassing, but she's doing fantastic.
Wow.
Fantastic. There's always hope.
We've had a little breakup in the screen. We can hear you fine.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Kind of gone squirrely here on us a little bit. And let me ask the question, Stephanie and Lainey. How did they ascertain that it was not spreading or metastasizing, but it was simply inflammation? Where did that difference come from?
Testing. They do different. The testing here is not. They might call it the same thing, but it's not the same report or the same results that they get there. It's more. The United States prides themselves on being state of the art with their technology. But down there in Mexico, they get much more detail and insight as to what's going on. And when you're talking about using pharmaceuticals and that's your main approach with somebody, I don't know how much weight they really give to the results of those tests, to be honest with you. So it's the same test. It was 2 different teams of doctors looking at the same test.
So this is really interesting to me because I actually spoke with a woman the other day who had a small mass in her breast. She went and got a a mammogram, and they said, okay, there's definitely something there. It's growing, come back in a week. And she got a machine, and she ended up treating every night. She had the semi machine. She treated in the evenings and in the mornings for about 10 minutes on that area. And when she went back, it was half the size. And they said, oh, you know what? It's nothing now. We thought it was something, but the swelling was down so much, we realized that it's probably an infection. And her doctor made the comment to her, sometimes it would take surgery or, going in a different way or even chemotherapy to realize that it wasn't what they thought it was. Does that make sense? So they jumped on an idea and scared her. And she thought, you know what, I'm going to try some other therapies. And she did. So it's very interesting when it comes to swelling in that area and that inflammation, how that can be read differently. And I find that with all parts of your body, everything can really benefit if you can bring your inflammation down and help with better blood flow. So I think that's kind of what you're talking about that they focused on at Hope for Cancer.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's the fear mongering and the assumption that everything must be cancer is very scary. So when you feel like you've got the white lab coat sitting in front of you telling you that this is your only option, there is nothing else that we have to offer you. Take it or leave it. Even with everything that she knew, that scared the life out of her. It made her sick. She couldn't eat for a week and a half after that. And this is our lifestyle. This is what we live. And just for those words to be spoke to her was destructive. I'm trying to use the right words, but it's shameful. It's shameful. There's a lot of other opportunity and option to incorporate the way the diagnosis is given, other than you have no other options. What people need to do, my biggest voice in all of this is you have to take responsibility of your health. You have to become the CEO of your health, regardless of what your diagnosis is or what your plan of action is going to be. If you give up your power and your control, that's what happens.
Right. I like this so much because part of the reason that I want to do this webinar, and I think part of the reason that my dad, just enjoyed meeting you, Stephanie, because he just raved about being at your conference, is that we are on the same path as a business. Like, yes, we are a business. Yes, we want people to find out about our product, but mostly it's because of the lives that we've seen change from trying something different, and the way that is MagnaWave or changing your diet a cure-all for everything. Absolutely not. But it is really good, and I think that you, as a woman and as any person out there, you should listen to your doctor, but A, get a second opinion, and B, I know a lot of doctors out there who are open to you doing other things. They're open to you using the MagnaWave. They're open to you, doing the diet as well as what they're prescribing as well. And that's the kind of physician that you need to look for. I've talked to people before that's a doctor who looked at a boy who had brain cancer and said, his diet doesn't matter. He can eat whatever he wants. And the mom was like, I think we're going to change that. I think we're going to focus on that diet. So it's really good to kind of take, like you said, be the CEO of your body. Go out there, do some reading, do some education, and try different things. Because when you get those type of diagnoses, you have to be open-minded.
Let me ask Stephanie, and Lainey, you can share this a little bit. One of the things that really stuck out to me when I attended your conference, when it was, I guess a month and a half ago now, 2 months ago, probably, maybe even longer, time flies, but they were talking about emotional support, emotional health, how important that is when dealing with cancer and other diseases. I mean, we spoke a lot about disease at your conference, which I thought was also amazing, that everything is not just about the cancer, but just general body diseases. But the emotional support that you have, that you needed, Lainey, and how are you dealing with that today? I mean, it's tough not to get support from your sister, as vibrant and outgoing as she is at her conference, but still, you're the one that has to deal with the situation. How are you doing that today, and what is your strategy?
Well, I did a lot of emotional work when I was down in Mexico. So they gave us kind of, I don't know how to say it, something to bring back home with us so we can continue working on ourselves to make sure that our emotions are benefiting us rather than working against us.
Homework. She's got emotional homework.
Emotional.
Yeah.
What is give me a little example of the emotional homework. I mean, it's just amazing to me how much emphasis they put on mental health and emotional support through the process.
It's sometimes the emotional part outweighs the physical part. You can do all of the things physically. You can go through all the actions, but if you don't identify the emotional causative factors, nothing will work. It won't. You just cannot outrun a negative or harmful emotion. And Dr. Tony says how does he say it? A bad thought is like is the worst germ, or something like that.
Right.
The most toxic germ is a bad thought.
Right. Perfect.
So what is your homework? What do you do?
A lot of it's just how I react to certain things. They worked a lot with us about how we react to certain situations that we might be in.
So tell me, Lainey, what is your physical aspect today? How do you feel that physically overall you're rebounding and dealing with your situation that's going on?
Physically, I feel really good. I actually just started going back to the gym, so
Yeah.
very good physical shape right now.
And so you're no longer on chemo at this point, correct?
Nope.
Okay. So your regimen is basically your vitamins, your minerals, your diet. What type of diet are you on?
Right now I'm on a vegan diet.
And that's because of her inflammation levels. They're keeping a close eye and monitoring the inflammatory markers, and to keep them down for the time being, she's on vegan, but they alter that. So every
3 months.
Every 3 months it changes depending on what your lab work is. So come November, mid to end November, they'll be reassessing her and potentially changing her nutrition at that point. She's also doing the magnetic field therapy. She's doing MagnaWave. She does that every day. She does light therapy. So there's a lot of a sauna, near infrared light therapy sauna. She works with a Reiki master. We have one here to help her. That's more emotional too. That helps her through balancing those emotions and not burying the toxic emotions that become the issues in the tissues. So rather than suppressing a negative feeling, emotion, or reaction, identifying it, dealing with it, managing it, and letting it just be, as opposed to burying it. And for a women's health, that's the number one offense that we have, is taking all of those emotions that we don't have time to deal with, we're not supposed to deal with, that we should just, push through. If we don't go through the process of managing them, then they will become an issue in our tissue. So that's been part of her therapy as well, and a very, it's probably one of the heavier ones that takes the most time and the most effort to get through.
I absolutely agree. I think that is what I hear the most from women, mothers, sisters. I mean, we take on, and I don't care what any man in the entire world says, sorry, Dad, but it really, women seem to take on a lot more of that emotional brunt of a family, and the stresses of every day. And we're expected in society as a whole to just smile about it and continue being pretty and sitting in the corner. And I think that there's times where being able to de-stress, knowing how to relax and how to take care of your body and deal with those emotions is huge. That's kind of what we focus on a little bit in these webinars. So I'm really glad that you brought that up.
Yeah.
So, folks, I'd like to say, if you have any questions, just post them in the chat box here, and we'd be happy to answer them for you. If you have a question for Lainey, for Stephanie, we'd be happy to approach that about the treatment regimens, anything that they have done. They'd be more than happy to answer those questions. So, Stephanie, can you tell us a little bit? You did a little bit at the beginning, but how you get involved with your coaching process and how that works at your clinic?
How I got involved, or how somebody would get involved?
How someone would get involved with you and what your coaching would entail.
So I work with people all over the world. I work with men and women, mainly women. It's women work well with women because we understand each other and on a different kind of level. But I work with somebody who is willing to identify what their purpose in life is, because if we don't have a purpose for living, then we're not going to be successful with anything, right? We have to identify what our purpose is. And I help people who want to figure things out. We identify what that is and we go through that process. So just by contacting our office, through email, through the website, calling, we go through a 6-week process and we identify what your passion and purpose is. What is your intention on this earth? Why do you need to heal? What do you need to go through? What emotional barriers are you dealing with? Forgiveness is a really big part of it too. In addition to taking care of the responsibility of your health from this point forward, cancer is a message that something is going wrong. It's an alarm system to many different systems that need our attention. So we, through the cancer coaching program, I help people to put their healing team together to find the control that they have over their health, to take responsibility in their health, and then to find the best path back to health. We do this over the course of 6 weeks. And depending if they're local, we get together locally. They have full access to the health center here. Otherwise, we do video conferencing such as Skype or Zoom, over the phone. And it's really a supportive mechanism, helping people to know what the options are. I don't tell them what they should be doing. I lay out all of the options, the information, the resources, the tools that they need, and we put together what best suits them. Do they need to see a specialist? Is it time to visit a cancer clinic outside of the United States? What is your role in healing? And a lot of it's emotional. A lot of times they just don't have that backing or that the focus. It's a lot of focus and forgiveness and responsibility. We start going through all the emotions and identifying. There's different steps. As soon as you get that diagnosis, you're angry, you're upset, then you're grieving, then you're fearful. We walk through and embrace all of that. Yeah.
That's very good. Very.
So what is your website, Stephanie? Can you tell us? It's Theta Living?
Yeah. Theta Living, THETA living.com. My husband named it, actually, because there's different brain waves, the alpha, delta, beta, theta.
Yes.
Theta is that time just before you fall asleep, and you're still with it. You can hear what's going on. You understand what's going on, but you're not participating. That's when radical remission happens. That's when we're most creative. That's when we bring our dreams to reality. And that's when we have our healing happens. So we're all about life and living. So Theta Living is just how he came up with that.
I love that. That's great. And I really appreciate you guys sharing your story. We did get a question from Emily. She said, do you or have you worked with meridian lines and those points for pain, growth, or energy flow?
So everything we do is holistic, and that's something that we expand on. It's one piece to the puzzle. So yes, we will touch on it, we'll explore it, but we look at everything. We look at hormones, we look at meridians, we look at light therapy, we look at nutrition, exercise, sleep, circadian rhythms, hormones. It's homeostasis is what we're looking for. So when we take cancer out of the equation, if instead of doctors telling somebody you have cancer, if they could say you have, well, according to your testing, you have a hormonal imbalance here, and you've got poor circulation there, and then we just dealt with it that way.
Yeah,
we would change the whole cancer industry. So yes, we do discuss that. No, it's not going to be the only thing that is going to get you back to health.
Okay, we've lost a picture a little bit again, but can you give us your phone number? And so if someone wants to call.
734-285-5020.
5020.
Yep.
Okay, so, and again, Stephanie has a MagnaWave Pulse Pro machine that she's been using. Lainey used the machine, the Max or the Semi at Hope for Cancer in Mexico. But, this webinar isn't just focusing on using MagnaWave. It's also focusing on all the different things. So I have a quick question. If somebody were to come to you and let's say they have like an early diagnosis of stage 1 cancer, breast cancer, and they're told, okay, your choice is, full on chemotherapy, or what would you recommend to someone? Where would you, send them to find other resources besides, like, is there anywhere that you like recommend them reading or trying before they go immediately down that chemotherapy route?
So for me, with the network of people that I work with, the number one starting point, if you go on YouTube and you just type in The Truth About Cancer Global Quest, episode 1 and episode 2 will pop up. Anybody can watch those at any point in time. It's not biased, and it's not telling you what to do. It's giving you the history on cancer, the history on where chemotherapy and radiation came from, how this came to be, why we're looking at, by 2020, 1 in 2.4 Americans being diagnosed with cancer. That's pretty scary.
Yeah.
So they touch on the what's to cancer. Like Dr. Tony Jimenez at Hope for Cancer, he does the whys, why you're going to be doing all of these different therapies, who's going to be doing all these therapies, and my role in all of this is the how. So how do you implement this? So even if you've gone to Hope for Cancer and you come home, how do you go back into normal lifestyle? How do you continue forward in this type of holistic lifestyle with no cancer?
Wow, that's wonderful. I really appreciate you guys coming on today, because this is exactly the type of story that needs to be told, especially here in the United States. But really quickly, why do you think that there's so many other therapies available outside of the United States in terms of like treating cancer and other diseases?
Mainly it's where the research dollars go. If it's not FDA approved in the United States, it's not going to be approved for any use for any type of medical condition. So when we talk about cancer specifically, here in the United States, their focus is on pharmaceuticals. Mm-hmm. Supportive therapies there's no money going into the research on those. So when they don't have science that backs it up, they're not going to promote it. The science and the evidence base is coming from outside of the United States. And Elaine, you mentioned earlier, there are doctors willing to work. There's a local cancer center that is taking a step forward into looking into integrative medicine and what that could mean. I'm slowly starting to work with them. They've opened the door to me. Mm-hmm. They've welcomed me in. So it's a good start. It's promising, but we still have people now who can't wait for them to come around.
Right.
We have to work now. We have to do things that make you feel good. Another thing that I never thought I would find myself do is I've helped people in end of life. Mm-hmm. So not everybody wants to go on hospice. Not everybody wants to be hooked up to beeping machines and that be their exit strategy for this life. Through alternative therapies or holistic, I hate to call it alternative. I like advanced energy medicine, sounds so much better.
Yeah.
But so with advanced energy medicine therapies, I've helped people manage their pain drug-free and comfortably transition with their family without being in any type of hospital, or uncomfortable setting. So they did everything they took control. They became the CEO of their health, mm-hmm. and found their dignity and the responsibility within themselves to finish out the rest of their life. So it doesn't matter what stage, what your cancer diagnosis specifically is, your body needs support. At any point in time, if you develop cancer, you're electromagnetically deficient. So it's going to benefit you in some way. So it's something that, whether we're talking about prevention or stage 0 through 5 cancer, there's benefit to be had in using the PEMF and the various light therapies and such that we use.
That's wonderful. That's wonderful. Okay, so thetaliving.com. Go check out Stephanie. Stephanie, where are you located?
We're in Southeast Michigan in a town called Riverview, just south of Detroit and north of Toledo, Ohio.
Okay, Michigan's beautiful. I was actually just there a few weeks ago, and I loved it. It's gorgeous. Y'all are very lucky. But Kentucky's not so shabby either. Okay, so she's in Michigan, ThetaLiving.com. Stephanie has a Pulse Pro machine. Her sister Lainey, just to recap, has had some incredible results using the MagnaWave and other therapies, working with Theta Living and Stephanie. So, and Hope for Cancer in Mexico, which have a Max and a Semi machine. So, the reason that we did this webinar, and we want, everyone to take away from this, is that there's other options out there. So listen to other people's stories. And what was that? What was it that Stephanie said to Google?
Google, it's right here. I've got it.
Hope, Truth About Cancer.
On YouTube.
Yes, Cancer Global Quest, Truth About Cancer Global Quest.
Which 2 episodes, Stephanie?
So you're going to want to look for the Truth About Cancer Global Quest, episode 1 and episode 2.
Okay.
Okay, and
Perfect.
then so if you ever have questions about MagnaWave or you want to get in touch with Stephanie, you can also call our office at 502-742-7868. We are at MagnaWavePEMF.com, and then I do this women's wellness webinar
once a month, first week of the month.
Yes, once a month, the first Tuesday of the month, and then the marketing webinar the third Thursday. So tune in next time. Do we have any last minute questions? Do you guys have any questions, Stephanie? Do you have any questions for us or anything that you had any like really good success stories with the machine so far that you've noticed other than your sister?
So I do have one client who has had extreme pain in his shoulder for decades now. He's in his 60s, and he used it a few sessions, and then he came in and I said, so how have you been feeling? You notice anything? And he says, well, I think the pain is starting to go away, but what his wife noticed is he was sitting on the couch, and whereas he would have to stand up slowly, completely turn his body to the side to pick up his laptop, then robotically sit himself back down, he just twisted, grabbed his laptop, and sat right back down after he had been using it. So that was pretty incredible. And then I have a woman another one of my clients, she's had pain in her elbow, like a tendonitis type pain, since last June, so a little over a year. And maybe 3 sessions, on her 3rd session, pain almost completely, not even a twinge left in her elbows. So I think that's pretty incredible. When we lift in, and she takes care of her grandkids, so that is a world of difference for her to be able to pick those babies up pain-free.
Yeah, quality of life, absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, I really appreciate you guys being here, and we will post this on our website and link to ThetaLiving.com underneath it so you can rewatch this. I appreciate everyone for watching, and tune in next Tuesday. The first Tuesday of next month, and we'll do it again.
Thanks, Lainey. Thanks, Stephanie. Nice visiting.
Thank you.
Bye, guys.
Bye-bye. Where'd it go?